Let me ask you a question that will expose everything about where you're heading. If you continue living exactly the way you're living right now, making the same choices, keeping the same habits, surrounding yourself with the same people, will you be proud of who you become in 5 years? And please, don't lie to yourself, because the truth is already eating at you. You already know you're settling. You already know you're capable of more. You already know there are areas of your life that are falling apart, and you're just pretending everything is fine. Here's the devastating reality. Your future is not some mysterious, unknown thing. Your future is predictable. It's the inevitable result of your current daily actions. Show me your schedule, and I'll show you your destiny. Show me your habits, and I'll tell you exactly where you'll be. And if that thought doesn't terrify you into action, then you've already given up on yourself. You just haven't admitted it yet. There was a clockmaker in Geneva who spent 40 years of his life crafting timepieces. Every morning he would open his shop at precisely 6 o'clock. And every evening he would close it at precisely 6 o'clock. His clocks were legendary, accurate to the second, shipped to palaces and parliaments across Europe. But here's what haunts me about his story. On his retirement day, a young journalist asked him what he had learned in 4 decades of measuring time. The old man looked at his wrinkled hands and said something that should shake every one of us awake. He said, "I spent my entire life making sure others didn't waste time, but I never realized I was watching my own life tick away without actually living it." That clockmaker understood too late what I need you to understand right now. Time doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't pause for your excuses. And right now, as we stand on the edge of 2026, you have a choice. You can continue drifting, or you can decide that the next 12 months will be the beginning of your transformation. Let me tell you something that nobody wants to hear, but everybody needs to understand. The person you are today is a direct result of the decisions you made yesterday. And the person you will become in 2026 is being shaped by what you choose to do right now in this moment. You cannot blame the economy. You cannot blame your parents. You cannot blame your education or lack of it. Those are factors, yes, but they are not your destiny. Your destiny is in your hands, and it starts with improvement. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. The first thing you must improve before 2026 is your relationship with failure. Most people treat failure like a disease, something to avoid at all costs, something shameful that must be hidden. But I want to tell you about a man who worked in a laboratory in New Jersey. His name was Frederick, and he was the assistant to one of the greatest inventors in history. One night, the laboratory caught fire. Years of research, prototypes, experiments, everything burned to ashes. Frederick stood there, tears streaming down his face, watching the flames consume what they had built. He expected his boss to collapse, to give up, to rage against the injustice. Instead, the inventor turned to him and said, "Go get your family. They need to see this. It's not every day you get to watch your mistakes burn up so you can start fresh." That inventor understood something most people never learn. Failure is not your enemy. Failure is your teacher. Every successful person you admire has failed more times than you have even tried. The difference between them and the masses is simple. They didn't let failure define them. They let it refine them, you see. When you fail at something, you're not discovering that you're inadequate. You're discovering what doesn't work. And that is priceless information. But most people fail once and decide that's evidence they're not meant for success. That's like planting a seed, checking it the next day, seeing no tree, and declaring that farming doesn't work. Failure is feedback. It's telling you to adjust, to learn, to grow, to try differently before 2026 arrives. You need to make peace with failure. You need to understand that the road to your destiny is paved with mistakes, setbacks, and disappointments. And every single one of them is preparing you for the success you're pursuing. The second thing you must improve is your financial intelligence. Now, I'm not talking about how much money you make, I'm talking about how you think about money. There was a farmer in the countryside who understood something profound about wealth. Every harvest season, while his neighbors celebrated and spent everything they earned, he would take a portion of his crops and store them. His neighbors mocked him. They said, "Why are you saving when you can enjoy?" The farmer would smile and say, "I'm not saving, I'm planting next season's security." When the drought came, and it always comes, his neighbors were desperate, begging for help, but the farmer had prepared. He had seed when others had none. He had food when others were hungry, and more importantly, he had options when others had only desperation. Most people are financially illiterate. And I don't say that to insult anyone. I say it because it's a fact that's destroying generations. You were taught how to work for money, but you were never taught how to make money work for you. You were taught to get a job, but you were never taught to create value. You were taught to spend what you earn, but you were never taught to invest what you save. And because of this ignorance, you are trapped in a cycle that keeps you perpetually dependent, perpetually struggling, perpetually one emergency away from disaster. Financial intelligence is not about greed, it's about stewardship. It's about understanding that money is a tool, and like any tool, you must learn how to use it properly. Before 2026, you must commit to educating yourself financially. Read books about money, learn about investments, understand the difference between assets and liabilities. Stop working just to pay bills and start working to build wealth. The third thing you must improve is your communication skills. There's a story about a man who built bridges across dangerous rivers. He saved entire villages from isolation, connected communities that had been separated for generations. But despite his incredible work, nobody knew his name. Why? Because he never learned to communicate his vision. He could build anything with his hands, but he couldn't build understanding with his words. One day, a younger engineer came along, less skilled, less experienced, but eloquent and persuasive. That younger engineer got the contracts, the recognition, the opportunities, not because he was better at building bridges, but because he was better at building connections through communication. Your success in life is directly proportional to your ability to communicate effectively. It doesn't matter how brilliant your ideas are if you cannot articulate them. It doesn't matter how hard you work if you cannot express your value. Communication is the bridge between your potential and your reality. Most people communicate, but they don't connect. They talk, but they don't listen. They speak, but they don't understand. And this limitation costs them relationships, opportunities, and influence. Before 2026, you must become a student of communication. Learn to listen more than you speak. Learn to ask questions instead of making assumptions. Learn to articulate your thoughts with clarity and conviction. Your words have power. They can open doors or close them. They can build people up or tear them down. They can create opportunities or destroy them. Master your communication, and you master your ability to influence the world around you now. The fourth thing you must improve before 2026 is your time management. I want you to understand something critical. There was an architect who spent 20 years designing buildings that would stand for centuries. He had blueprints for schools, hospitals, monuments that would serve generations. One afternoon, his office caught fire. Not the kind of fire that destroys everything instantly, but a slow, creeping fire that gave him time to save something. He could only make one trip into that burning building. He had to choose his awards, his diplomas, his photographs, or his blueprints. He ran past everything else and grabbed his blueprints. Why? Because those blueprints represented the future. Everything else represented the past. When the reporters asked him later why he made that choice, he said something I'll never forget. He said, "Awards tell you what you've done. Blueprints tell you what you can still do. I saved my future, not my history. Your time is your blueprint. Every hour you waste is a piece of your future you're throwing away. And here's the painful truth. You will never get it back. You can recover from financial loss. You can heal from emotional pain. You can rebuild relationships. But time, once spent, is gone forever. Yet most people treat time like it's unlimited. They scroll through their phones for hours. They watch television shows they don't even enjoy. They attend meetings that accomplish nothing. They spend time with people who drain their energy. And at the end of the day, they wonder why they're not making progress. You're not making progress because you're not protecting your time. You're not making progress because you're confusing being busy with being productive. Being busy means you're filling your schedule with activities. Being productive means you're filling your schedule with results. Before 2026, you need to audit your time. Track every hour for 1 week. Write down what you actually do with your 24 hours. You'll be shocked. You'll discover that you're spending hours on things that don't move you forward, on things that don't matter, on things that don't align with your goals. Time management is not about doing more things. It's about doing the right things. The fifth thing you must improve is your reading habits. There was a man who worked as a night watchman at a factory every night while others slept. He sat in that guardhouse for 12 hours. Most watchmen would pass the time complaining, sleeping, or staring into space, but this man brought books. Not just any books, but books that challenged him. Books about philosophy, science, history, leadership. His co-workers mocked him. They said, "Why are you wasting your time reading? You're just a watchman. You'll always be a watchman." But he ignored them. Night after night, year after year, he read. He consumed knowledge like a starving man consumes food. 10 years later, that watchman became a university professor. The same people who mocked him were now asking him for help. What changed? His circumstances hadn't changed immediately. His salary hadn't changed immediately. But his mind had changed. And when your mind changes, eventually everything else follows. Leaders are readers. This is not a cliche. This is a principle. Show me what you read and I'll show you where you're going. Show me your library and I'll show you your future. The reason most people are not growing is because they're not reading. They claim they don't have time. But they have time to watch 3 hours of television. They have time to scroll through social media. They have time for gossip and entertainment, but no time for education and growth. Reading is how you compress decades of wisdom into days. When you read a book, you're downloading the knowledge that took someone a lifetime to accumulate. You're learning from their mistakes without having to make those mistakes yourself. You're gaining insights that cost them years of struggle before 2026. Commit to becoming a reader, not just any reader, but a strategic reader. Read books that challenge your thinking. Read books about leadership, about money, about communication, about your industry. Read biographies of people who accomplished what you want to accomplish. Read and apply what you learn. The sixth thing you must improve before 2026 is your network and relationships. Let me tell you about a lighthouse keeper who lived on a remote island. His son grew up isolated, surrounded only by waves and seagulls. The boy was brilliant, talented, full of potential, but he had no one to learn from except his father. No mentors, no peers, no connections. When he finally left that island as a young man, he discovered something devastating. The world had moved on without him. Technologies he'd never heard of, opportunities he didn't know existed. People who could have helped him but didn't know he existed. His isolation had cost him years of development. He had potential, but potential without connection is like a seed without soil. It cannot grow. You need to understand this truth. You cannot rise beyond the level of the people you surround yourself with. If you're the smartest person in your circle, you're in the wrong circle. If everyone around you thinks small, you'll think small. If everyone around you is comfortable with mediocrity, you'll become comfortable with mediocrity. Your network determines your net worth. Your associations determine your aspirations. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. This is not about using people. This is about being strategic with your relationships. Before 2026, evaluate your circle. Who are you spending time with? Are they challenging you to grow or encouraging you to stay comfortable? Are they going somewhere or are they going nowhere? Are they adding value to your life or draining energy from your purpose? You need people in your life who are ahead of you. People who have accomplished what you're trying to accomplish. People who can open doors you don't even know exist. But you also need to be that person for someone else. Relationships are not one-sided. You cannot just take. You must also give. Find mentors who can guide you. Find peers who can challenge you. And find people you can mentor who remind you of your progress. Network with intention. Build relationships with purpose. Quality over quantity. Always. The seventh thing you must improve is your health and energy. There was a runner who trained for marathons his entire adult life. He won races, broke records, inspired thousands, but he ignored something critical. He ignored the signals his body was sending him. The pain in his knees, the exhaustion that lingered too long, the irregular heartbeat during training. He told himself that champions push through pain, that rest is for the weak, that he could sleep when he was dead at 38 years old. During what should have been the prime of his career, his body gave up. Not gradually, but suddenly. One day he was running. The next day he couldn't walk across a room without assistance. The doctors told him what he refused to hear years earlier. Your body was talking to you and you weren't listening. Now it's screaming and you have no choice but to hear it. Your body is not just a vehicle that carries your head around. Your body is your first business. If your body fails, everything else fails. You cannot build an empire from a hospital bed. You cannot chase your dreams when you have no energy. You cannot fulfill your purpose when you're too sick to function. Yet most people abuse their bodies daily. They eat food that slowly poisons them. They skip sleep like it's optional. They avoid exercise like it's punishment. They consume stress without managing it. And then they wonder why they're always tired, always sick, always operating at half capacity. Let me be clear. Health is not about vanity. It's not about looking good in photographs. It's about having the energy to execute your vision. It's about having the strength to endure when times get hard. It's about having the clarity of mind to make wise decisions. Before 2026, you must prioritize your health. Not tomorrow. Not when you lose the weight. Not when you have more time. Right now. Start moving your body. Start eating food that nourishes you instead of just filling you. Start sleeping enough hours. Start managing your stress. Your health is your wealth. And without it, everything else you're building means nothing. The eighth thing you must improve before 2026 is your skill development. Let me take you back centuries ago to ancient Persia. There was a blacksmith's apprentice named Darius who learned to forge weapons and tools. He was good at his craft, respected in his village. But one day, a merchant arrived from a distant land with tools made from a metal Darius had never seen. These tools were stronger, sharper, more durable. Within months, nobody wanted Darius's products anymore. His skills, once valuable, had become obsolete. He had two choices. He could complain about the unfairness, blame the merchant, resent the change, or he could learn. Darius chose to learn. He traveled for 2 years, studying new techniques, understanding new metals, mastering new methods. When he returned, he wasn't just a blacksmith anymore. He was an innovator. His skills were now more valuable than ever because he refused to become obsolete. The world is changing faster than ever before. The skills that got you here will not get you there. What made you valuable 5 years ago might be irrelevant today. Artificial intelligence is replacing jobs. Technology is disrupting industries. New methods are making old methods outdated. And if you're not learning, you're dying. Not physically, but professionally. You're becoming irrelevant. You're becoming replaceable. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what position you hold. If you're not developing new skills, you're volunteering for obsolescence. Before 2026, identify what skills you need for the future you want. Not the future you have, the future you want. Maybe it's learning technology. Maybe it's understanding digital marketing. Maybe it's mastering a new language. Maybe it's developing financial analysis skills. Maybe it's learning artificial intelligence, whatever it is. Commit to it. The most successful people are not those with the most talent. They're the ones with the most relevant skills. They're the ones who keep learning when everyone else stops. They're the ones who adapt while others complain about change. Skill development is not optional. It's mandatory for anyone who wants to remain valuable in a rapidly changing world. And the ninth thing you must improve is your emotional intelligence. There was a ship captain who navigated the most dangerous waters in the world. He had sailed through storms that destroyed other vessels. He had crossed oceans that claimed countless lives. When people asked him how he survived what others couldn't, he said something profound. He said, "I don't control the storm. I control my response to the storm. The ocean doesn't care about my feelings. The waves don't negotiate. But I can choose how I respond. I can panic. Or I can strategize. I can freeze, or I can adapt. My emotions don't dictate my actions. My decisions dictate my emotions." Most people are controlled by their emotions instead of controlling them. Someone offends them and they react without thinking. Someone criticizes them and they collapse. Something goes wrong and they quit. They're like ships without rudders, tossed by every wave, destroyed by every storm. Emotional intelligence is your ability to understand your emotions, manage your emotions, and respond to situations with wisdom instead of impulse. It's recognizing when you're angry and choosing not to speak. It's feeling fear and choosing to move forward anyway. It's experiencing disappointment and choosing to try again. Before 2026, you must develop emotional intelligence. Self-awareness is the foundation. You need to understand what triggers you. What makes you angry? What makes you anxious? What makes you shut down? Once you understand your triggers, you can manage your responses. Your emotions are not your enemy, but they cannot be your master. They're signals, not commands. They provide information, but they don't make decisions. You make decisions. And when you learn to manage your emotions instead of being managed by them, you unlock a level of leadership and influence most people never experience. Emotional intelligence separates good leaders from great ones. It separates those who survive from those who thrive. The 10th and final thing you must improve before 2026 is your sense of purpose. Let me tell you about a man who cut stones for a living every day. He would arrive at the construction site, chisel in hand, and shape rocks according to specifications. A visitor once approached him and asked, "What are you doing?" The stonecutter replied, "I'm cutting stones." "Can't you see?" The visitor walked a few steps and found another stonecutter doing the exact same work. He asked him the same question, "What are you doing?" The second man looked up and said, "I'm earning a living to feed my family." The visitor continued walking and found a third stonecutter covered in dust, working with intensity and precision. He asked him, "What are you doing?" The third man stopped, looked at the massive structure rising behind them, and said with fire in his eyes, "I'm building a cathedral, a place where people will come for centuries to find hope, to find peace, to connect with something greater than themselves. I'm not cutting stones. I'm creating legacy." 3 men, same job, same tools, same location, but completely different purposes. The first man was just doing a task. The second man was just making money. But the third man was fulfilling a mission. Purpose is what transforms work into worship. Purpose is what turns effort into excellence. Purpose is what makes you wake up with passion instead of dread. Most people are living by accident. They're drifting through life, reacting to circumstances, making decisions based on convenience instead of conviction. They have no clear direction. no compelling vision. No reason that makes them jump out of bed with excitement, and because they have no purpose, they have no power. Purpose gives your pain meaning. When you know why you're doing something, you can endure anyhow. When you understand your mission, obstacles become opportunities. Challenges become character builders. Setbacks become setups for comeback before 2026. You must get clear on your purpose. Not what your parents want you to do. Not what society expects. Not what pays the most or requires the least effort. What were you born to do? What problem were you created to solve? What impact were you designed to make? Your purpose is not about you, it's about who you're meant to serve. It's about the difference you're meant to make. It's about the legacy you're meant to leave. When you discover your purpose, everything changes. Your decisions become clearer. Your priorities become obvious. Your energy becomes focused. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter and start investing in things that do. Now let me tell you about the graveyard of good intentions. Every January, millions of people make resolutions. They're going to lose weight. They're going to start businesses. They're going to learn new skills. They're going to change their lives. By February, most of those resolutions are forgotten. By March, they're back to their old patterns. Why? Because they made wishes, not commitments. They had desires, not discipline. They wanted change, but they weren't willing to do what change requires. Knowing what to improve means nothing if you don't actually improve it. Information without application is just entertainment. You can listen to this message, nod your head, feel inspired, and do absolutely nothing. And if that's your choice, you'll wake up in 2026 exactly where you are today, maybe worse, wondering why nothing changed. Or you can decide right now that this is your moment. This is your turning point. This is where your story shifts. I want you to understand something about the next 90 days. 90 days is long enough to see real transformation, but short enough to maintain focus. Take these 10 things and pick 3. Not 10, 3. Because if you try to improve everything at once, you'll improve nothing. Pick 3 areas where improvement will create the most impact in your life right now. Maybe it's your financial intelligence, your health, and your communication skills. Maybe it's your time management, your reading habits, and your emotional intelligence. You decide based on where you are and where you need to go. Write them down. Create a plan. Set specific goals. Not vague wishes like, I want to be healthier, but concrete targets like, I will exercise 4 times per week and eliminate processed sugar from my diet. Not, I want to be smarter, but I will read 1 book every 2 weeks on leadership and finance. Make your improvement measurable. Make it specific. Make it non-negotiable. Here's what will happen if you don't improve. You'll stay exactly where you are. Your problems will multiply. Your opportunities will pass you by. Your potential will remain locked inside you, and one day you'll be old. Looking back on your life with the most painful emotion a human being can experience, not anger, not sadness, regret. Regret for the person you could have become but didn't. Regret for the life you could have lived but chose not to. Regret for the impact you could have made but were too comfortable, too afraid, too lazy to pursue. Don't let that be your story. Your 2026 self is watching the decisions you make today. That future version of you is either going to thank you or curse you for what you choose right now. You are planting seeds today that you will harvest tomorrow. Plant seeds of discipline and you'll harvest success. Plant seeds of laziness and you'll harvest regret. The choice is yours. But you must choose, because not choosing is still a choice. Not deciding is still a decision. Not improving is still moving, just in the wrong direction. You were not created to be ordinary. You were not designed to live a mediocre existence. You were born with gifts, talents, abilities that the world needs. But those gifts will never manifest if you don't improve. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming circumstances. Take responsibility for your life and start improving today, not tomorrow, today, because time is ticking. 2026 is coming, and the only question that matters is this: who will you be when it arrives?